The BP oil spill was like, I mean, it's like a classic mistake. It's like it's such a small mistake, and it's so easily preventable. And all it is you have a string of pipe. So that string of pipe's in the hole, and offshore it's a massive pipe. And then you put cement on the outside of the pipe. So you pump cement through the inside of it, and it comes up the outside. And then you set, and you wait for the cement to set up. Now, Spoon's on his
I'm looking
TikTok
up
right now.
I'm looking up a video for Sohail.
So when the cement is liquid, its hydrostatic pressure is the weight, its actual weight is holding the hydrocarbons back, right? So its weight is holding it back. As it sets up, it starts clinging to the sides of the hole. As it clings to the sides of the hole, gravity no longer is pulling it down. When this happens, if you do have, they mix the cement in batches, so it's like, you're mixing it as you're pumping it. So if you have just one isolated bad batch, it's only going to cover X number of feet of hole. But if you have a issue, the hydrocarbons will channel, and so it'll just be one little sliver of hydrocarbons trying to make it up through that cement that is still not set up. So you've got a big column of cement that is liquid going to solid. Part of it sets up before the other part, and the hydrocarbons start channeling because it's no longer putting any hydrostatic pressure on the formation. As it channels, you see it on the surface. You see it instantly. If you do what you're supposed to do, and what then after BP became like, you have to do this protocol. I mean, we always did it because what you do is you're trying to get ahead on the rig move. So you have what's called a blowout preventer. Offshore, they have one down there on the ocean floor. So it's down there. It might stay even after the rig moves. I don't know what they do offshore, but you have a blowout preventer, and it can close the well in. So you just close the well in. You monitor the pressure. The pressure is going to build up. It's going to build up regardless. It's going to build up regardless if the cement's channeling. It's going to build up regardless if the cement's setting up. Just depending on how much pressure you have is whether or not you have a channeling issue. So after you let it set for, say, 8 hours, you've got little samples that you pull out of every batch, and you can see what it is on the surface. You can see if it's set up. But say you wait on cement for 8 hours, and you open the choke up, you bleed off the pressure, and then you close it back. If it builds pressure back, you're not there yet. Just wait a little longer, okay? Offshore, when they did that, so they waited on cement, they didn't have their equipment lined up properly. So when they closed it back in, they had swapped some valves around, and they couldn't see the pressure rebuilding. So they thought
they were good.
They thought they were good, but they had swapped some valves, and they were no longer getting any pressure to that gauge.
I got pressure.
So anyways, when that took place, when that happened, they opened it back up. Now, at that point, the well will be flowing. It will start flowing, and as those hydrocarbons make their way up the well, they expand every time they double in size every time they come halfway up the well. So the closer that it gets to the top, the way worse off you are.
So the molecule size is actually changing?
Yeah, it's Boyle's Law, ain't it?
But I don't know. I'm asking, is it because it's under so much pressure?
It's under pressure at
As
the
it's
bottom, so it could be
releasing
a gas bubble the size of your hand, and the hole's 10,000 foot deep. At 5,000 foot deep, it's going to be the size of 2 hands. At 2,500 foot deep, it's going to be the size of 4 hands. But it starts expanding rapidly. So you'll start off with a little trickle, and then by the time it's rushing, you got a big problem on your hands. And that's what they had. Well, their blowout preventers weren't set up to be able to close in, and I think they were probably already moving. They couldn't. Their blind shears wouldn't work. So when it got there,
what's a blind shear? Is it like a big
blind
gate
ram?
valve?
It cuts the pipe, and so they were still stung into it at the service, obviously, but they have normally in all BOPs, whenever you run casing, they put in casing blowout. They put out, see, you got blowout preventers that go around casing. So like those right there at the top are made to go around pipe. When you have a set of shear rams in, they'll actually cut the pipe in half. They'll pinch it in half and cut it, and then seal off the well. And they couldn't.
Too much pressure. Couldn't shut it.
No, I mean it's made to cut whatever. So, anyways, when they got ready to shut it in, and there's always one dude, that's in a bigger hurry than everybody else that's out there, that's cutting those corners. Now you got to think about it. Like a rig that size, I think at the time, I don't know what the day rate was on it. I think for some reason I remember it being some astronomical amount, but it couldn't have been right. I mean, it's in the millions of dollars a day. A day rate on a rig on land at that time, we were getting about $30,000 a day for a rig. They were getting in the millions for an offshore rig. So, anyways, when they couldn't,
what's the output got to be to
that well was blowing out 60,000 barrels of oil a day. Your typical West Texas land well, you hear people about $3,000 or $4,000, 3,000 or 4,000 barrels a day, but I mean, that's an absolute screaming shell well. 3,000 or 4,000 barrels a day or fracked well. That's insane. They peter off real fast. So you can see, this illustration's kind of shit, but that's what's happening. Now, this little robot's going down there and gonna cut the. Yeah, I don't know what the robot's pointing this is. Oh. All right. This is some new technology. I don't know what they got going on. But anyways, they lost control of it. And I mean that well, I don't know how much money they lost on the cleanup. I know they were fined $20 billion. And it changed the industry forever. Now, used to you didn't have to wait on cement. Like used to on land or whatever, you open it up, it's not flowing, you'd start breaking it down immediately. And then you're taking your blowout preventers off. That's literally, now they got technology where you don't have to cut the casing, but you would set slips on the casing. So you would hang the casing in the wellhead, and it'd have slips. It'd just have a set of, like a Chinese finger trap that the casing would set in, and that would hold the casing up. They would bevel it, put the cap on. That's the very first thing you do before you move the rig. So the very first thing you do after you cement is take your ability to control the well away. I've been on jobs where the well is flowing. I've been right there, the person on the BOP telling the guy that's in a hurry, this motherfucker's flowing, and him going, oh no, that's just expansion. Expansion is the heat of the cement. Cement creates heat as it sets up, sure. and it's expanding, and it's forcing water out of the hole because water is the only thing on top of that cement. And so it's just flowing, and then eventually you're like, guys, the cellar pump's no longer keeping up. This thing is flowing, and you're sitting with your BOP, which is a giant piece of equipment. I mean, 20, 30,000 pound piece of equipment hanging on either your blocks or a set of winches, and you got to set it back down. You open the valves up to where it can
flow,
where it can just shoot out into the field. To where you can actually put your bolts back in, and then you hammer it up. Normally you test it to make sure it can withstand the pressure that it's about to have put on it, but obviously the test is about to be...
It's going to be when you close the valve.
Yeah, when you close that valve off, is this going to hold up? And so you close your rams and you see what pressure you got, and then you start trying to kill the well from the surface, which is very, 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 very difficult. In this situation, it's, I can't even remember the process of how they kill it. You've got to get weighted fluid on the outside of this pipe, so they got to strip in the hole, probably perforate it somewhere, and try to get some weighted fluid on top of it. I actually never had to deal with that side of it, but I can only imagine that that killing those wells has its own set of challenges. But I have seen them move a whole entire rig off of the location, except for the BOP. Because of this very scenario I just laid out, like move it off, like it would be, they'd have the panic line open is what it's called, and so it would blow out into this guy's pasture, and then when it would bridge over and not blow for a little bit, so like rocks or something would get, right. It would Air stop bubble. Up, you know what I mean, and it just couldn't blow as hard anymore. They would go in there with cranes and just pull another piece of the rig off, and then it would start screaming again. They would say it's too unsafe. Come off location, so they go off location.
Sounds
and then
about right.
You pull it off, and then once you get it off, then Boots and Coots or whoever your well control people are come out there and do their thing.
Dude.
Probably a snubbing unit, I would guess. Snubbing unit.